Chosen one. Why are you still awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, feeling like something monumental is about to shatter your ordinary world? Why does your spirit carry a weight that your doctor can't diagnose, your pastor can't explain, and your family can't understand? What if I told you that restless ache in your chest isn't anxiety, it's recognition? Your soul is picking up frequencies from the throne room of heaven itself. You thought today would be ordinary. Coffee growing cold, morning news droning in the background, another day blending into the endless parade of sameness. But then heaven pressed pause on everything around you. This message didn't find you by accident, not by algorithm, not by chance, by divine assignment. Listen to me carefully. Chosen one. And yes, that's exactly what you are. A billionaire shift is erupting in the spiritual realm right now. While the world sleeps, while the masses scroll mindlessly through their feeds, God Almighty is repositioning resources, influence, and supernatural authority. And He's issuing a final warning to His chosen ones. Do not miss your seat at the table. You've survived wars, buried spouses, watched your children scatter like autumn leaves. You've endured recessions that would have crushed weaker souls, heartbreak that should have killed you, and changes that left others paralyzed with fear. But this moment, this divine intersection of your timeline with eternity's plan, it's unlike anything you've witnessed in your 70, 80, 90 years on this earth. Before we journey deeper, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Holy Spirit move your heart. If your spirit is already thundering yes inside your chest, if something ancient and eternal is awakening in your bones right now, type in the comments, I'm chosen. Don't let this moment pass in silence. This isn't superstition, this is spiritual alignment. This is you declaring to heaven and hell that you recognize the sound of your Master's voice. In the next few minutes, I will reveal why your life has carried unusual weight when others coasted through on easy street. Why you've endured battles that would have destroyed ordinary people. Why every closed door, every betrayal, every season of silence was actually heaven positioning you for the greatest wealth transfer in human history. The trumpet has sounded, chosen one. The question is, will you answer the call? Why does your bank statement tell a different story than your lifetime of faithfulness? Why have you tithed for 60 years, prayed through every crisis, served in every capacity the church asked, yet you're still calculating whether you can afford both groceries and your blood pressure medication this month? Why does it feel like God blessed everyone else's retirement account while yours evaporated in market crashes you never saw coming? You're walking through the chaos of modern America, sirens wailing in the distance, young people rushing past, glued to screens, chasing dreams you once had. The noise is deafening. Stock market alerts, political arguments, social media notifications, a symphony of confusion that drowns out everything sacred. Your footsteps blend into 1,000 others, invisible in the crowd of a world that seems to have forgotten your generation exists. But suddenly, like a trumpet blast cutting through Manhattan traffic, God places His hand on your shoulder. Everything stops. The chatter fades. The rushing slows. And you realize this moment, this divine interruption of your ordinary Tuesday, is not coincidence. It's coronation. The word of the Lord thunders through Deuteronomy 8:18. Remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth, and so confirms His covenant. Not was, not might, gives. Present tense, active, happening right now in your life, regardless of what your 401 Kelvin balance says. You've watched your savings disappear twice, maybe 3 times in crashes that destroyed decades of careful planning. You've seen your home value plummet while your property taxes soared. You've buried friends who died broke despite working honest jobs for 50 years. And somewhere in the sleepless nights of financial worry, a lie crept into your spirit. Maybe God's blessings are for other people. Maybe I missed my window. That whisper didn't come from heaven. You sit at kitchen tables at 3 a.m., calculator in hand, trying to make Social Security stretch until the end of the month. You've downsized 3 times, sold wedding rings to pay medical bills, and swallowed pride to accept help from children who are drowning in their own debt. The America you built with your sweat and sacrifice feels like a foreign country now. And you wonder if you've become a burden to a world that values speed over wisdom, technology over experience. But what if every financial setback was actually set up? What if every closed door in your past was heaven protecting you from settling for less than the unprecedented transfer that's about to unfold? This is not about greed, beloved. This is not about flaunting wealth or collecting material trinkets. This is about divine stewardship, being chosen to handle resources that will heal the brokenhearted, restore the fallen, and rebuild what corruption has torn down. God doesn't hand billions to the careless. He entrusts it to those who've been tested in the furnace of lack and emerged with their integrity intact. Think about Joseph, forgotten in prison while his brothers lived in comfort. Every day of injustice was preparing him to manage Egypt's entire economy during a 7-year famine. Your seasons of financial wilderness weren't punishment, they were preparation for a blessing so massive that only someone who's learned to trust God with empty pockets can be trusted with full vaults. While you've been faithful with little, heaven has been watching. Every dollar you've given when you couldn't afford it, every bill you've paid on time despite the struggle, every moment you chose faith over panic, when the bank account hit 0, it's all been recorded in an eternal ledger. And compound interest in God's economy doesn't follow Wall Street rules. The enemy has whispered that your best financial days are behind you, that prosperity is for the young and tech-savvy, that senior citizens should be grateful for scraps. But that's exactly what he told Moses at 80 before God made him the deliverer of nations. That's what he whispered to Abraham at 99 before Isaac was born. That's what he hissed at Anna before she prophesied over baby Jesus at 84. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. Your experience with financial struggle isn't your disqualification. It's your doctoral degree in trusting God when the math doesn't make sense. Every gray hair on your head is a crown of wisdom that younger generations desperately need to witness. Right now, in boardrooms across Manhattan, in government offices in Washington, in corporate headquarters from Silicon Valley to Wall Street, the decisions are being made that will redirect the flow of wealth like rivers changing course after an earthquake. What the wicked have hoarded is about to be released into hands that will use it righteously. And God is positioning his battle-tested stewards, those who've learned to worship in want and praise in poverty, to receive what's being redistributed. The transfer isn't coming to those who've had it easy. It's flowing to those who've had it hard and remained faithful anyway. To those who've given their last widow's mite and watched God multiply it. To those who've learned that their security doesn't come from market performance, but from the Master's promise. If you've ever felt like the world forgot you, like your voice doesn't matter in a youth-obsessed culture, like your years of service have gone unnoticed, comment 111 below. That number represents alignment, heaven's way of saying, I see you, I've prepared you, your moment is here. But here's what most people don't understand about divine wealth transfers. They don't happen to the passive, they happen to the positioned. And positioning requires more than just surviving your wilderness. It requires recognizing when the season is shifting and responding with the urgency of someone who knows this window won't stay open forever. So the question burning in the spiritual realm right now is this: will you step into what heaven has prepared, or will you let fear of disappointment keep you on the sidelines of the greatest financial miracle your generation has ever witnessed? Look back through the corridors of time, chosen one. Look back and see the fingerprints of the Almighty written across every page of human history. There is a pattern so consistent, so undeniable, that once you see it, you'll never question God's intentions for your financial future again. You want proof this billionaire shift is real? You want evidence that heaven is about to redistribute wealth on a scale that will leave economists speechless? Then let me take you back to a prison cell in Egypt, where a forgotten Hebrew boy named Joseph was rotting away for a crime he didn't commit. 22 years old, dreams of greatness mocking him from memory, betrayed by his own brothers, falsely accused by his master's wife, thrown into a dungeon where hope goes to die. For 13 long years, Joseph watched the sun rise and set through iron bars, wondering if God had abandoned him to obscurity. But here's what Joseph couldn't see from that cell. Here's what the enemy desperately tried to hide from him. Every single day of his suffering was positioning him for the greatest economic appointment in ancient history. Because when Pharaoh's dreams tormented him, when Egypt's wise men stood speechless before the king's throne, it wasn't the educated elite who had the answers. It was the forgotten prisoner in the dungeon. Genesis 41-40 records Pharaoh's stunning decree. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall be ruled according to your word. Only in regard to the throne will I be greater than you. In one divine moment, Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister, from forgotten to the second most powerful man on earth, from managing nothing to controlling the wealth of an entire empire. But this wasn't luck, beloved. This wasn't coincidence. This was the pattern of God. Fast forward 400 years. The children of Israel, enslaved in that same Egypt, ground down by generations of oppression, their backs broken building monuments to false gods, their hope crushed under the weight of Pharaoh's whip. For 4 centuries, it seemed like God had forgotten his promise to Abraham. Then came the night of Passover. Exodus 12:35-36 tells us something that should make every economist in America take notice. The Israelites did as Moses instructed, and asked the Egyptians for articles of silver and gold, and for clothing. The Lord had made the Egyptians favorably disposed toward the people, and they gave them what they asked for, so they plundered the Egyptians. Think about that word, plundered, not borrowed, not earned through years of labor, plundered. In one night, 400 years of stolen wages were returned. The wealth that had been built on their backs was transferred into their hands. They didn't leave Egypt empty-handed. They left carrying the gold and silver that should have been theirs all along. This is the pattern of God. Justice delayed is not justice denied. But here's where it gets personal for you, sitting in your living room in Queens, or your farmhouse in Nebraska, or your retirement community in Florida. This pattern isn't ancient history. It's prophetic blueprint. Because tucked away in Proverbs 13:22, King Solomon recorded a principle that will shake you to your core. The wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. Read that again. Stored up, present tense. Not might be stored up someday. Not could be stored up if we're lucky. Is stored up right now. While you've been struggling to pay for your medications, while you've been choosing between groceries and gas, while you've been wondering if you'll ever get ahead, the wealth has been accumulating, waiting, building interest in heaven's bank. Every crooked deal on Wall Street, every CEO who pillaged pension funds, every politician who sold out the American people for personal gain, every billionaire who built their empire on the broken backs of the working class. They didn't just get away with it. They became unwitting collectors for God's chosen ones. The wicked have been gathering it like ants storing grain for winter, but they don't know winter is coming. They don't realize they've been working for you all along. History repeats because God's nature never changes. He has always moved resources from the unjust to the just. He has always vindicated the oppressed. He has always kept his promises to those who wait on him. And now, in this hour, in this generation, he is doing it again. This is not theory, beloved. This is prophecy in motion. You see it happening already, don't you? Billionaires losing fortunes overnight, corrupt corporations collapsing under the weight of their own greed, financial institutions that seemed untouchable, crumbling like sandcastles at high tide. What the world calls market volatility, heaven calls divine repositioning. But here's the sobering truth that will determine whether you're sitting at the table when the transfer happens or standing outside watching through the window. Many will miss it. Many of God's own people will miss the greatest financial miracle since the Exodus. Why? Because they're looking for it to come the way the world sends wealth. Through hard work and human networking, through education and career advancement, through playing by the rules of a rigged system. But God's ways are not our ways. His economy operates on different principles: faith instead of fear, obedience instead of manipulation, divine timing instead of human impatience. The question burning in heaven's throne room right now is simple. Who will recognize the pattern when it manifests in their generation? Who will have eyes to see when Joseph's moment arrives? Who will be ready when their personal Passover comes? Because I'm telling you right now, the signs are everywhere. The pattern is repeating. And those who understand the heart of God, those who recognize His fingerprints on history, are about to witness the greatest wealth transfer this nation has ever seen. But are you prepared for what that means? Look around you, chosen one. Look at the world they've built while you were sleeping, while you were trusting, while you were believing that good would triumph. These counterfeit kings have been stealing your children's future, one corporate decision at a time. You see them on your television screen every night. Billionaires who got rich by keeping you poor. Tech moguls who sold your privacy for profit. Pharmaceutical giants who turned your pain into their payday. Banking dynasties who foreclosed on your neighbor's home while building golden palaces for themselves. They sit in boardrooms 50 floors above the streets where your grandchildren can't afford to live. They make decisions over lunch that cost you your pension. They laugh at charity galas while seniors like you choose between medication and groceries. But here's what they don't know. Here's what their Harvard degrees and insider information can't teach them. There's a God in heaven who keeps meticulous records, and their reign of terror has an expiration date written in divine ink. You want to talk about counterfeit kings? Let me paint you a picture from the pages of history. Pharaoh thought he was untouchable, the most powerful man in the known world, ruling an empire built on the broken backs of Hebrew slaves. He had the military, the wealth, the political connections. When Moses showed up asking for freedom, Pharaoh laughed. Who is this shepherd with a speech impediment challenging the mighty Pharaoh? But God had other plans. 10 plagues later, that same Pharaoh was begging Moses to leave, throwing gold and silver at the Israelites just to get them out of Egypt. The king who thought he controlled life and death couldn't even protect his own firstborn son. What happened to Pharaoh is happening right now to these modern-day counterfeit kings. You're watching it unfold in real time, but you might not recognize it yet. The scandals breaking, the empires crumbling overnight, the mighty falling from their towers. King Nebuchadnezzar learned the same lesson. Daniel chapter 4 tells us, "This mighty Babylonian ruler was so drunk on his own power that he declared himself equal to God. He pointed to his golden city and boasted, 'Is this not the great Babylon I have built by my mighty power?' Before those words finished echoing through his palace halls, a voice from heaven declared his 7-year sentence. The great king lost his mind, crawling on all fours, eating grass like an animal, until he acknowledged that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of men. These modern counterfeit kings are about to face their Nebuchadnezzar moment. That pharmaceutical CEO who jacked up insulin prices 5,000% while diabetic children died. His empire is already cracking. That tech mogul who censored truth while promoting lies. Watch his stock price plummet. That banking dynasty that's been manipulating currency for generations. Their house of cards is about to collapse. But here's where it gets personal for you, dear one. Why should you care about the fall of these counterfeit kings? Because their wealth didn't disappear into thin air when they stole it from you. It's been stored up, accumulated, waiting. Proverbs 13:22 declares with supernatural authority, "The wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous." Every dollar they squeezed from the poor, every pension they looted, every dream they destroyed, it's all been collecting interest in heaven's bank, waiting for the moment when God transfers it to his chosen ones. You think it's coincidence that you're still alive to witness this? You think it's accident that you've survived every recession, every market crash, every attempt to break your spirit? No, chosen one. You've been preserved for this moment. You've been kept standing so you could step into what they're about to lose. Think about the Herod dynasty. King Herod the Great slaughtered innocent babies trying to kill the Christ child. Herod Antipas beheaded John the Baptist. Herod Agrippa had James executed and threw Peter in prison. Generation after generation of evil rulers who thought they could silence the voice of God. Where are they now? Dust. Forgotten names in history books, while the kingdom they tried to destroy spans the globe and rules billions of hearts. These counterfeit kings sitting in their Manhattan penthouses and Silicon Valley mansions think they're building something permanent. They think their algorithms and stock portfolios make them gods. They believe their influence is unshakable. But Psalm 75 verses 6 and 7 slice through their delusion like a sword through silk. No one from the east or west or from the desert can exalt themselves. It is God who judges. He brings one down, he exalts another. Did you hear that? It is God who judges. Not the Securities and Exchange Commission, not congressional hearings, not even public opinion. God judges. And when the Almighty renders his verdict, no Supreme Court can overturn it. No political connection can appeal it. No amount of money can buy a pardon. Right now, at this very moment, the gavel is coming down in heaven's courtroom. These counterfeit kings who have oppressed the widow, stolen from the orphan, and gotten rich off the suffering of the poor are about to face divine justice. Their towers are already cracking, their crowns are slipping, their thrones are shaking. God is clearing the land for his chosen ones. And you, yes, you are part of his royal succession plan. You want to know why you felt that stirring in your spirit lately? Why you can't shake the sense that something massive is about to shift? Because the transition of power has already begun in the heavenly realm. Now it's manifesting in the natural. The question isn't whether these counterfeit kings will fall. The question is, will you be ready to step into what they're losing? Say it aloud right now. I will not miss my moment. Don't whisper it. Declare it. Write it in the comments so heaven and earth can witness your declaration. This is holy ground, and you're standing at the threshold of the greatest wealth transfer in human history. But preparation isn't passive, and the window of opportunity won't stay open forever. Dear chosen one, I know exactly what you're thinking right now. You're sitting there wondering if God has forgotten your address. You look around your life and see nothing but the same four walls, the same struggles, the same bank account that never seems to grow. You've been praying for breakthrough for so long that your knees have worn grooves in the carpet beside your bed. But let me tell you something that will shatter every lie the enemy has whispered in your ear about your stagnant season. What if I told you that right now, at this very moment, there's a massive river flowing beneath the frozen landscape of your circumstances? What if the silence you're experiencing isn't God's absence, but his strategy? Picture this with me. It's the dead of winter in upstate New York. The ground is rock solid, covered in 3 feet of snow. Trees stand bare like skeletal fingers reaching toward a gray sky. To anyone walking above, everything looks dead, motionless, forgotten. But beneath that frozen surface, something extraordinary is happening. A mighty river powerful enough to carve canyons is rushing with unstoppable force, carrying nutrients, reshaping the landscape, preparing for the greatest spring thaw in a generation. That's your life right now, beloved. That's what's happening in the spiritual realm while you're wondering if anything will ever change. You see, the nature of God's greatest movements is that they begin in the hidden places. While you've been feeling invisible, heaven has been incredibly visible in its activity on your behalf. While you've thought nothing was happening, everything has been happening. Daniel 2:22 declares this powerful truth. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells with him. But here's what breaks my heart about so many of God's precious saints. You've been measuring spiritual activity by surface appearances. You think because your circumstances haven't changed, God isn't moving. You think because the phone hasn't rung with your miracle, heaven has gone silent. You think because your mailbox still brings bills instead of blessings, you've somehow been forgotten. That's not how the kingdom operates, dear one. Let me ask you something that's going to cut straight to your soul. How many nights have you laid in that bed, staring at the ceiling, whispering desperate prayers that you thought nobody heard? How many times have you gotten on your knees in the darkness of your kitchen at 3 a.m., crying out to a God who seemed 10 million miles away? How many tears have you shed in secret, believing they were falling on deaf ears? Every single prayer has been recorded. Every tear has been collected. Every act of obedience in the darkness has been deposited into an account in heaven's vaults that's been accumulating compound interest for decades. The problem isn't that God isn't moving. The problem is that you've been looking for earthquakes when He's been working through tectonic shifts. You've been listening for thunder when He's been speaking in the whisper. You've been expecting Hollywood miracles when He's been orchestrating divine setups that are far more powerful than anything the human mind could devise. Right now, while you feel stuck, heaven is repositioning every piece on the chessboard of your life. That person who hurt you last year, God is using their betrayal to redirect you toward a blessing they never could have blocked. That job you lost that devastated you, heaven is using that closed door to position you for an opportunity so much greater that you'll thank God for the rejection. That relationship that ended and broke your heart, the Almighty is preparing a connection so divinely orchestrated that you'll realize why every other door had to close first. But here's the urgency that should grip your spirit right now. The frozen season is almost over. The underground river that's been building pressure beneath the surface of your circumstances is about to break through. And when it does, it won't be a gentle trickle. It will be a flood of provision, opportunity, and blessing so powerful that everyone around you will ask the same question. Where did this come from? Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand about hidden seasons. They're not punishment periods. They're preparation periods. While the surface looked dead, your root system has been growing deeper, stronger, more resilient. While others were celebrating surface victories, you were developing the character that can sustain supernatural increase without being destroyed by it. Your unseen obedience has been creating seen results in realms you can't perceive yet. Your quiet sacrifices have been building an account balance in heaven's economy that would shock you if you could see the ledger. Your faithfulness in the darkness has been positioning you for influence in the light that will impact generations you'll never meet. The river isn't coming, beloved. The river is here, right now, beneath your feet, building pressure, gathering force, preparing to break through the frozen ground of impossibility and flood your life with the abundance that's been your inheritance all along. But here's the question that will determine whether you're positioned to receive the flood when it breaks the surface. Will you keep walking in faith on the frozen ground above, trusting that God is working beneath what you can see? Or will you give up 3 feet from gold, surrendering to the lie that nothing will ever change? Because I'm telling you right now, the spring thaw of your destiny is closer than you think, and when that hidden river finally breaks through, you'll understand why every season of silence was necessary to build the pressure that would change everything. You know what nobody talks about in those shiny Sunday morning sermons? The fire, the scorching, relentless fire that's been burning in your life for decades. They tell you about God's love, His blessings, His peace. But they never explain why you've been walking through hell while others seem to coast through life on rose petals and rainbows. Listen to me, chosen one. Every betrayal that cut you to the bone, every unanswered prayer that left you screaming into the void, every sleepless night when you wondered if God had blocked your number, none of it was random. None of it was punishment. It was preparation. You've been in the refiner's fire. And most people, they don't survive what you've survived. Think about the loneliness that's been your unwelcome companion for years. Remember when your own children stopped calling? When friends you'd known for 30 years vanished the moment you needed them most? When that church you served faithfully for decades suddenly treated you like a stranger? That wasn't abandonment, dear soul. That was isolation by divine design. God needed you alone with him, because what he's about to download into your spirit can't be contaminated by human opinion, watered down by well-meaning advice, or stolen by jealous hearts. But let's get brutally honest here. How many nights have you cried yourself to sleep, feeling like a cosmic mistake? How many times have you looked in the mirror and wondered what you did so wrong that even the Almighty seemed to forget your address? How many prayers have you whispered that felt like they bounced off the ceiling and landed back in your lap, unopened, unheard, unanswered? I see you. I see that pain carved into the lines around your eyes. I see the weight you carry in your shoulders from decades of holding up everyone else while your own world crumbled. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Every single tear you've shed has been collected in heaven's bottles. Every prayer you thought went unheard was being recorded in the courts of eternity. Every betrayal that almost destroyed you was actually destroying everything in you that couldn't survive the wealth that's coming. 1 Peter chapter 1 verse 7 declares with thunderous authority, "These trials will show that your faith is genuine. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold, though your faith is far more precious than mere gold." Did you catch that? More precious than gold, your tested faith, your refined character, your purified heart. Heaven values it higher than all the gold in Fort Knox. But here's the part that will shatter your understanding of your own story. You think God was punishing you with that fire. You think he was angry, distant, uncaring. But beloved, a goldsmith doesn't throw gold into the fire to destroy it. He throws it in to purify it, to remove every impurity, every contamination, every element that would weaken its value. You've been sitting in that furnace wondering why God abandoned you, but he never left. He's been standing right there, watching the temperature, controlling the flames, waiting for the exact moment when every trace of fear, bitterness, and self-reliance would burn away, leaving behind pure, unshakable faith. That depression that nearly killed you in your 60s, that was God burning away your need for human approval. That financial ruin that left you eating beans and rice, that was heaven removing your trust in earthly security. That betrayal from your closest friend, that was the Almighty extracting your dependence on flesh and blood. Every loss prepared you to handle gain without being destroyed by it. Every wound made you trustworthy with power. Every desert season taught you to find water in the rock. You know what separates you from those who never entered the fire. They still break under pressure. They still crumble when the wind blows. But you've been tested at 2000 degrees Fahrenheit and came out shining. You've survived what would have turned others to ash. Look at your hands right now. Really look at them. Those aren't the hands of someone who's been defeated. Those are the hands of someone who's been refined. Every scar tells a story of victory. Every line speaks of battles fought and won. Every tremor whispers of a faith that refused to die even when death seemed easier. Heaven calls you trustworthy now, not because you're perfect, but because you're proven. Not because you never fell, but because you always got back up. Not because the fire never touched you, but because it couldn't consume you. The billionaire shift that's coming isn't just about money, precious soul. It's about authority. It's about influence. It's about resources being placed in hands that have been tested by fire and found faithful. God can't trust unlimited wealth to someone who hasn't learned to trust him with unlimited pain. But here's the urgency that should grip your heart right now. The refining season is ending. The fire is cooling. And soon, very soon, you're going to step out of that furnace into a realm of abundance that will make every tear worth it, every loss profitable, every betrayal a setup for supernatural recompense. You didn't just survive the fire, chosen one. You came out shining with the glory of the one who held you through every flame. And now heaven is ready to show the world what happens when refined gold gets released into its rightful place of honor. The question thundering from the throne room is this: are you ready to stop seeing yourself as a victim of the fire and start walking as the victory that emerged from it? The earth is trembling beneath your feet right now, and most people don't even feel it, but you do, don't you? That deep rumbling in your spirit, that sense that everything familiar is about to be turned upside down. You're not imagining it, chosen one. Heaven itself is preparing to shake the foundations of every system this world has built on greed, corruption, and pride. Listen to the ancient words of the prophet Haggai, chapter 2, verse 7. I will shake all nations, and what is desired by all nations will come, and I will fill this house with glory, says the Lord Almighty. This isn't some distant prophecy gathering dust in seminary libraries. This is your present reality unfolding in real time. The billionaire shift isn't coming, it's here. Right now, as you listen to these words, corporate empires built on exploitation are cracking at their foundations. Political dynasties that seemed untouchable are being exposed. Financial institutions that have ruled for generations are discovering their vaults are empty, their power is vapor, their reign is over. But here's what will shock you to your core. While their towers are falling, God is simultaneously raising up his chosen vessels. The same earthquake that destroys the corrupt creates the opening for the righteous. The same storm that sinks the wicked lifts up those who've been faithful in the shadows. You think you've been forgotten? You think your prayers have been falling on deaf ears? Dear chosen one, you've been positioned. Every closed door in your past was protecting you from getting wealth before your character could handle it. Every delay was divine timing, ensuring you'd be ready when the flood of provision arrives. The wealth transfer isn't just about money changing hands. It's about authority shifting from those who worship mammon to those who worship the living God. It's about influence moving from those who serve themselves to those who serve his kingdom. It's about the meek literally inheriting the earth, just as Jesus promised. Can you feel it building? That pressure in the atmosphere, that sense that something massive is about to break loose. Investment portfolios that took corrupt billionaires decades to build are about to evaporate overnight. Technologies they've used to control and manipulate are about to be turned against them. The very systems they created to maintain their stranglehold on resources are about to become the channels through which God redistributes wealth to his faithful remnant. But here's the urgency that should grip your heart right now. This window won't stay open forever. Just like Noah had a specific time frame to build the ark before the flood, you have a specific window to position yourself before this supernatural surge peaks. The rain is already starting to fall, chosen one. The question is, are you ready to step into the boat? What took others decades to accumulate through manipulation and compromise, God will compress into months for those who've proven faithful in the wilderness. The pharmaceutical executive who's hoarded billions while people suffered. His empire will crumble in a week. The tech mogul who's controlled information to deceive millions. His platforms will turn against him. The financial predator who's built wealth by crushing the poor. His accounts will be frozen by divine judgment. And in that same moment, the grandmother who's faithfully tithed her social security check for 40 years will suddenly receive an inheritance she never expected. The grandfather who's worked 2 jobs to put his grandchildren through college will discover investments he forgot about have multiplied exponentially. The widow who's lived on beans and rice while supporting 3 ministries will find herself funding entire crusades. This isn't fantasy, beloved. This is the final wealth transfer before Christ returns. The last great redistribution from the kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of light. And if you're hearing this message with spiritual ears, if your heart is pounding with recognition right now, you're not an observer, you're a participant. The storm clouds are gathering on every horizon. Economic indicators that used to be reliable are showing patterns no economist can explain. Currency values are fluctuating in ways that defy market logic. Precious metals are moving, as if guided by an invisible hand. The very wealthy are quietly liquidating assets, sensing something they can't name but desperately fear. They should be afraid. Because Proverbs 13:22 declares, "The wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous." Every dollar they've stolen, every resource they've hoarded, every advantage they've gained through corruption, it's all been accumulating in a heavenly storehouse with your name on it. But this final surge requires more than passive waiting. It demands active faith. The kind of faith that says yes before seeing the full plan. The kind of trust that steps out of the boat while the storm is still raging. The kind of obedience that follows God's instructions even when they seem to make no earthly sense. What took the wicked decades to build, heaven will redistribute in months to those whose hearts are aligned with His purposes. The final wave isn't just bigger than any before. It's so massive it will reshape the entire global economy. When it hits, those who are positioned will find themselves overwhelmed, not just with resources, but with the responsibility to steward them for His glory. Your preparation time is ending, chosen one. Your deployment time is beginning. The final surge is building momentum in the spiritual realm, and soon it will break through into the natural world with a force that will leave the earth forever changed. If your spirit is ready for what's coming, if you're prepared to carry wealth that comes with divine assignment, if you're willing to be a conduit of heaven's abundance rather than a container for selfish gain, then declare it boldly. Type 444 in the comments below. That number represents foundation you're declaring. Lord, build me strong enough to carry what you're about to release. The thunder is getting closer. Can you hear it? You know what they don't tell you about fire, chosen one. It doesn't just burn, it reveals. And right now, as you sit there feeling the weight of decades pressing down on your chest, you need to understand something that will shatter every lie the enemy has whispered in your ear about your pain. That furnace you've been living in for the last 20, 30, 40 years. That wasn't God punishing you. That was God preparing you. Listen to me carefully. Every night you cried yourself to sleep wondering if anyone heard your prayers, God was taking notes. Every morning you woke up feeling forgotten by heaven itself. The Almighty was positioning pieces on a chessboard you couldn't see. Every season, when your faith felt paper thin and your hope barely flickered, that wasn't evidence of abandonment. That was evidence of refining. The prophet Peter understood this mystery when he wrote, "These have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor." 1 Peter chapter 1 verse 7. Did you catch that? Your faith is worth more than gold, and just like gold, it must pass through fire to reveal its true value. But here's what breaks my heart, dear one. You've been living like damaged goods when heaven sees you as refined treasure. You've been apologizing for your scars when God sees them as your credentials. You've been hiding your story when the world desperately needs to hear how someone survived what should have killed them. Not punishment preparation, not rejection protection, not delay divine alignment. Think about the goldsmith's furnace. When he heats precious metal, he doesn't walk away and forget about it. No, he stands right there, watching, waiting, controlling the temperature with precision. He knows exactly how much heat is needed and for how long. And here's the supernatural part. He knows the gold is ready when he can see his own reflection in its surface. That's what God has been doing with you. Every degree of heat in your life has been precisely measured. Every trial has been specifically designed to burn away what doesn't belong in your destiny. And right now, as you sit here wondering if you can take another day of this refining process, the master goldsmith is looking into your life and beginning to see his own reflection staring back. Do you understand what this means? You're not coming out of this fire weaker, you're coming out radiant. You're not emerging damaged, you're emerging dangerous to every force of darkness that tried to destroy you. You're not walking away broken, you're walking away with the kind of strength that only comes from surviving what would have shattered ordinary people. But I need to ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many times have you questioned God's love because of the intensity of your trials? How many midnight hours have you spent wondering why everyone else seems to have it easier while you carry burdens that would crush most people? How many times have you looked around your community, your church, your family and thought, why me? Why does my life feel like one long, endless battle? Here's the answer that's going to rock your world. Because God trusts you with fire that would consume others. Because He sees something in you that you've forgotten about yourself. Because you were built for battles that require supernatural endurance, divine strength, and unshakable faith. The enemy didn't attack you randomly. He didn't target your health, your family, your finances, your peace of mind because you were weak. He came after you with everything he had because he could see what God placed inside you, and it terrified him. Not punishment preparation, not rejection protection, not delay. Divine alignment. You think those sleepless nights were wasted? God was downloading wisdom into your spirit while the world slept. You think those seasons of isolation were punishment? Heaven was protecting you from influences that would have contaminated your calling. You think those financial struggles were evidence of God's displeasure? The Almighty was teaching you to depend on Him as your source instead of the unstable systems of this world. Every tear you've cried has been collected in heaven's bottles. Every prayer you've whispered in desperation has been recorded in eternal archives. Every moment you felt forgotten has been marked as faithful endurance in the courts of heaven. And now, right now, as the billionaire shift begins to unfold, as God prepares to transfer unprecedented wealth and influence into the hands of His proven ones, you need to understand why you were chosen for such intense preparation. It's because what's coming requires someone who can handle pressure without breaking, someone who can carry blessing without being corrupted by it, someone who can steward resources without losing their soul in the process. The fire didn't destroy your capacity for joy, it purified it. The pressure didn't crush your ability to love it, deepened it. The pain didn't eliminate your faith, it refined it into something unshakable. When the widow of Zarephath gave Elijah her last meal, when she poured out what she thought was her final oil, when she stepped into radical obedience despite her circumstances, that oil never ran dry. Not during the entire famine. The very thing she released in faith became the source of her supernatural provision. That's what's about to happen to you, chosen one. Everything the fire has refined in you, your faith, your endurance, your unbreakable trust in God's faithfulness, it's about to become the very foundation upon which He builds your financial miracle. If you know the fire didn't destroy you, if you're still standing after everything hell threw at you, if you recognize that every battle was actually building something indestructible inside you, then declare it to the heavens right now. Type, still standing. Don't just think it, speak it into existence. Because your survival isn't luck. Your endurance isn't willpower. Your ability to keep believing when everything looked impossible is proof that you carry something the enemy couldn't touch, couldn't steal, couldn't destroy. The refining fire is almost finished, dear one. And what's about to emerge from those flames will leave the world speechless. Listen to me, chosen one. That knot in your stomach when you open the bills, that's not just financial stress. That terror when the credit card gets declined at the grocery store in front of strangers, that's not just embarrassment. That voice in your head whispering, "We'll never get ahead," that's not your voice at all. You've been living under a covenant you never signed, a spiritual contract written in the blood of generational defeat, sealed with the lies your grandparents believed when they said, "Money doesn't grow on trees," and we weren't meant to have much. Your great-grandmother spoke poverty over her children during the Depression, and those words became chains around your ankles before you took your first breath. Poverty is not just empty pockets, dear one. Poverty is a spiritual chain, forged in hell's foundries, designed to keep God's children begging for crumbs when they were born to own the bakery. You've been walking around with invisible shackles, accepting limitation as your portion, survival as your ceiling, barely getting by as your inheritance. But I'm here tonight to tell you something that will shatter every lie you've believed about money, about worth, about what God intends for His chosen ones. The Bible declares in Proverbs 13:22, "The wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous," not might be stored up, not could be stored up, is stored up. Present tense, already done. Your wealth isn't coming, it's waiting. For 70, 80, 90 years, you've been programmed to think small, to apologize for dreaming big, to feel guilty for wanting more than just enough. You've been taught that poverty equals piety, that struggle equals sanctification, that barely making it somehow makes you more holy. That's a demonic doctrine, designed to keep you powerless while the wicked prosper. Look at your bank account right now. Look at that number that makes your chest tight. That's not God's will for you. That's the result of agreements made in darkness by people who didn't know better. Your grandfather worked 3 jobs and died broke, believing that was noble. Your mother clipped coupons and counted pennies, thinking that was wisdom. But they were operating under a covenant of lack that God never authored. Here's what breaks my heart: you've been trying to serve God with one hand while poverty held the other. You've been tithing from lack instead of abundance, giving from fear instead of overflow. You've been so busy managing scarcity that you never learned to steward abundance. You've been trained to be a consumer when God designed you to be a creator of wealth. The enemy has convinced you that wanting financial freedom is selfish, that praying for money is carnal, that prosperity is dangerous. But here's the truth that will set you free. God doesn't need you poor to keep you humble. He needs you wealthy to advance His kingdom. The early church didn't change the world through poverty. They changed it through pooled resources, strategic giving, and supernatural multiplication. You want to know why you've struggled financially your entire life? Because there's been a spiritual assignment against your bloodline. Every time you got close to breakthrough, something happened. The car broke down. The medical bill arrived. The job got cut. That wasn't bad luck, that was systematic sabotage, designed to keep you in survival mode instead of kingdom mode. But tonight, that covenant gets broken. Tonight, those chains get shattered. Tonight, you stop being a victim of your ancestors' agreements and start being a victor through Christ's finished work. Jesus didn't just die for your sins, He died to break every curse, every limitation, every generational pattern that keeps you trapped. When He said it is finished on that cross, He was talking about more than salvation. He was talking about the complete destruction of every covenant that contradicts God's abundance. Right now, I need you to do something that might feel uncomfortable. I need you to get angry. Not bitter angry, righteous angry. Angry at the lies you've believed. Angry at the limitations you've accepted. Angry at the poverty spirit that has stolen decades of God's blessing from your life. You think God wants you counting pennies at 85 years old. You think the creator of the universe designed you to stress about prescription costs. You think your heavenly Father takes pleasure in watching you choose between groceries and gasoline. The God who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills doesn't want His children begging for crumbs. The God who paved streets with gold in heaven doesn't want His chosen ones walking on concrete in worn-out shoes. The God who promises to supply all your needs according to His riches in glory doesn't measure His supply by your current bank balance. Today, that covenant is broken. Scarcity ends here. Lack ends here. Fear ends here. You are stepping into abundance that makes no mathematical sense, provision that defies economic forecasts, wealth that flows from heaven's treasury directly into your hands. No more chains, no more chains, no more chains. Every word of poverty you've spoken reversed. Every agreement with lack you've made nullified. Every generational curse of financial limitation cancelled by the blood of Jesus Christ. You are not your grandfather's financial failure. You are not your mother's economic struggle. You are a child of the King, and royalty doesn't beg. If you're ready to sever every tie to poverty, if you're ready to step out of the limitations that have held your family for generations, if you're ready to walk in the abundance that's been waiting for your breakthrough, type in the comments right now, "I renounce lack." Speak it with fire. Declare it with authority. Let hell hear you breaking free. But understand this, breaking the poverty covenant is just the beginning. Now you must learn to walk in wealth, and that requires a complete transformation of how you think, how you speak, and how you steward what God places in your hands. You know what breaks my heart? It's watching God's chosen ones, men and women who've survived the Great Depression, fought in wars, raised families through impossible odds, suddenly shrink back when heaven calls them to their greatest assignment. You've faced down Nazi submarines in the Atlantic. You've rebuilt your life from scratch after losing everything in the market crash of 2087. You've buried children, spouses, dreams. But now, when God whispers, "Step out," you whisper back, "I'm too old." Listen to me, warrior. That's not your voice. That's the voice of fear wearing the mask of wisdom. The enemy has been whispering the same lie to God's people for thousands of years. Your time has passed. You're too late. You missed your window. But let me shatter that deception with the thunderous truth of Scripture. When God told Abraham to leave everything at 75 years old, Abraham could have said, "Lord, I'm a senior citizen. Let me enjoy my retirement." Instead, he packed up and became the father of nations. When Moses stood before Pharaoh at 80 years old, 80 demanding the release of 2 million slaves, he wasn't operating in youthful strength. He was walking in fearless faith. Joshua 1-9 doesn't come with an age limit. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Notice it doesn't say wherever you go, unless you're over 65 and collecting Social Security. But here's where it gets personal. How many of you right now are feeling that tug in your spirit, that divine pull towards something bigger, but you're talking yourself out of it because of your birth certificate? How many dreams have you buried alive under the tombstone of, "I'm too old for this"? How many times has heaven knocked on your door with opportunity, only for you to pretend you're not home because you think you've aged out of God's plans? The billionaire shift I'm talking about tonight isn't coming to the timid. It's not flowing to those who've made peace with playing it safe. This transfer of wealth, influence, and authority is moving toward the fearless, those who understand that faith doesn't have an expiration date stamped on it like a carton of milk. Think about Peter, middle-aged fisherman, weathered hands, probably creaking joints from years of hauling nets. When Jesus said, "Come," Peter didn't calculate the risk. He didn't check his life insurance policy. He didn't say, "Lord, maybe one of the younger disciples should try this first." He stepped out of that boat onto churning water while winds howled and waves crashed. And for those miraculous moments, he walked on impossibility itself. But here's what wrecks me about that story. When Peter started sinking, it wasn't because the water suddenly got wetter. It wasn't because Jesus lost his power. Peter sank because he took his eyes off Jesus and started calculating the odds. He shifted from fearless faith to fearful logic. That's exactly where some of you are right now. God is calling you to step out of the boat of your comfortable routine, your predictable pension, your safe little world. He's asking you to launch that ministry at 72. Start that business at 68. Write that book at 83. Move across the country at 79 to be closer to your grandchildren. And you're drowning in the mathematics of impossibility instead of walking on the miracle of his call. The shift that's coming requires fearless faith, not recklessness. There's a difference. Recklessness is jumping without hearing from God. Fearless faith is jumping because you heard from God. It's the difference between presumption and obedience. It's the difference between human impulse and divine instruction. Sarah was 90 when she laughed at God's promise of a child. 90. Her body had been in menopause for decades. Medical science would have called it impossible. But 12 months later, she was nursing Isaac, the child of promise, who would become the beginning of God's chosen nation. Her fearless faith in the face of biological impossibility became the foundation for millions of believers. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." While other warriors his age were content to rest on their laurels, Caleb was still claiming territories, still fighting giants, still believing that his best battles were ahead of him, not behind him. At 85, he had the audacity to ask for the most difficult assignment in the promised land. What mountain is God asking you to claim? What giant is he calling you to face? What impossible thing is he whispering in your ear while logic screams, absolutely not? The wealth that's about to transfer in this season isn't moving to the cautious, it's flowing to the courageous. It's not going to those who've made peace with mediocrity. It's moving toward those who still believe God has more influence, more impact, more years of significance left in their story. Right now, I need you to silence every voice that has told you your season is over. I need you to rebuke the spirit of limitation that has convinced you that retirement means retreating from purpose. I need you to remember that Moses didn't retire at 65, he got his burning bush at 80. Sarah didn't become irrelevant in her 90s, she became the mother of nations. You are not winding down, you are being wound up. You are not in your sunset years, you are in your moment of divine activation. The grey in your hair isn't a sign of decline, it's a crown of wisdom. The lines on your face aren't marks of age, they're etchings of authority, earned through decades of trusting God when everything else fell apart. Say it with me right now. No fear here. Don't just think it, declare it. Type it in the comments with the boldness of someone who refuses to let age become an excuse for inaction. No fear here is your battle cry against every demonic whisper that says you're too old, too late, too tired to be used by God in extraordinary ways. Let every principality, every power, every force of darkness that has been banking on your retreat hear you roar. No fear here, because when the fearless rise, kingdoms shift. The question isn't whether you're ready for what God is about to do. The question is, will you step out of the boat when he says, come? Dear chosen one, let me ask you something that cuts straight to your soul. Why have you spent decades feeling like you're standing on the outside of every room you enter? Why does success seem to find everyone except you? Why do opportunities slip through your fingers like water? No matter how hard you pray, how faithfully you tithe, how desperately you seek God's favor, the answer will shock you. You haven't been excluded, you've been positioned. There's a profound difference between rejection and redirection, beloved. What you've interpreted as God's silence has actually been his strategy. Every closed door wasn't punishment, it was protection. Every delay wasn't abandonment, it was divine alignment. Heaven has been moving you like chess pieces across the board of your life, positioning you for a moment so significant that being in the wrong place could cost you everything. The prophet Habakkuk understood this mystery when he declared, in chapter 2 verse 1, I will stand at my watch and station myself on the ramparts. I will look to see what he will say to me. Notice Habakkuk didn't run around frantically searching for God's voice. He positioned himself, he planted his feet, he waited with intention. But here's what tears at my heart. So many of God's chosen ones misinterpret their positioning season as abandonment. You've been standing in the exact spot heaven assigned you, but because it doesn't look like success, because it doesn't feel comfortable, because others seem to be moving while you're standing still, you think you've been forgotten. Listen carefully. An archer doesn't draw the bow quickly. The master marksman pulls slowly, deliberately, building tension inch by inch. The farther back the arrow is drawn, the more power builds behind it. The longer the tension, the farther that arrow will fly when it's finally released. Your life has been in the archer's hands, and the tension you felt isn't punishment, it's preparation for the shot that will carry you beyond anything you could have imagined. You see, positioning requires discomfort. If you were completely comfortable where you are, you wouldn't be ready to move when God says now. The restlessness in your spirit isn't a sign you're in the wrong place. It's proof you're being prepared for the right moment. Ruth felt this discomfort when she left everything familiar to follow Naomi into an uncertain future. But that positioning put her in Boaz's field at the exact moment he arrived to check his harvest. David felt this discomfort hiding in caves while Saul hunted him like an animal. But those caves weren't his prison, they were his training ground. Every night of feeling abandoned was actually a night of being prepared for the throne that awaited him. The discomfort was proof of his positioning. But let me tell you something that will revolutionize how you see your current season. This billionaire shift isn't coming to those who are scrambling to find the right position. It's coming to those who have already been positioned. The wealth transfer isn't for the ones still running around trying to network their way into blessing. It's for the faithful ones who stayed planted where God put them, even when it made no earthly sense. Think about the 10 virgins in Matthew's parable. 5 were prepared and positioned when the bridegroom arrived. 5 were not. The tragedy wasn't that the unprepared virgins didn't want to enter the wedding feast. The tragedy was that when the door opened, they weren't standing before it. Position determined participation. Right now, across America, across the world, God is finalizing the positioning of His chosen vessels. Some of you are in small towns where nothing seems to happen, wondering why God planted you in what feels like spiritual Siberia. But what if that small town is exactly where the next great revival will begin? What if your positioning there isn't exile, it's assignment? Others of you are in cities where you feel invisible among millions, wondering why you can't break through, why your voice isn't heard, why your gifts seem to go unnoticed. But what if your anonymity has been your protection? What if God has been keeping you hidden until the appointed time when visibility would serve His purposes instead of destroying you? The enemy wants you to believe that positioning means punishment. He whispers lies. If God really loved you, you'd be somewhere else by now. If you were truly chosen, you wouldn't be struggling. If you were anointed, doors would be flying open. But those are lies designed to make you abandon your post just before the breakthrough arrives. Here's the truth that will anchor your soul. Every major move of God in history required someone to be positioned before the miracle manifested. Noah had to build the ark before the rain came. The widow had to gather empty jars before the oil multiplied. The disciples had to wait in the upper room before Pentecost descended. The door you've been praying for isn't just going to open, it's going to burst open with such force that only those already standing before it will be able to walk through. Those still searching for the door will miss their moment. Those still questioning their position will forfeit their portion. God is about to release wealth, influence, and supernatural opportunities that will reshape entire industries, entire regions, entire generations. But this release isn't random. It's strategic. It's going to the positioned ones, the planted ones, the ones who learned to bloom where they were planted, even when the soil felt hard and the season felt long. If you've been feeling like you're in the wrong place, if you've been tempted to abandon your post, if you've been wondering why God seems to have forgotten your address, I need you to understand something that could change everything. Your discomfort is proof of your positioning. The tension you feel is the archer's bow being drawn back. The isolation you've endured is strategic placement for maximum impact. Heaven's positioning is never about your comfort, it's about your calling. And if you can receive this word, if you can stop fighting your position and start embracing it, you're about to discover why you've been exactly where you needed to be all along. The question that will determine your destiny is this: will you trust heaven's positioning, or will you abandon your post just before the door swings open? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. When God entrusts wealth to His people, it's never for accumulation alone. It's for assignment. This is the generosity assignment, the divine mandate to use what flows into your hands as a weapon against darkness, as healing balm for a wounded world, as seed for tomorrow's harvest. But here's where most believers stumble. They think generosity begins when they finally have enough. They sit in their recliners, counting their social security checks, waiting for some magical moment when they'll feel safe enough to give. Meanwhile, their hearts are slowly calcifying with fear, and their spirits are dying of spiritual constipation. The truth that will shatter your comfort zone is this: generosity begins where you are, not where you wish you were. You want to know why some Christians live their entire lives in financial bondage? Because they've reversed God's economy. They hoard when they should flow. They grip when they should release. They've turned themselves into reservoirs when God designed them to be rivers. Picture this with me. A reservoir sits still, collecting water, holding it, keeping it safe. It protects what it has, rarely releasing, always afraid of running dry. But here's the fatal flaw. Stagnant water breeds disease. It becomes toxic. It dies. Now picture a river. A river never stops moving. It receives from the mountains and gives to the sea. It waters everything in its path. Crops, animals, entire civilizations flourish because of its constant flow. And here's the miracle. The more it gives, the more it receives. The river never runs dry because it's connected to an endless source. Which one are you, beloved? A reservoir or a river? Don't you dare tell me you're waiting until you have more to give. That's the poverty spirit talking, whispering lies that keep you bound. The woman who dropped 2 coins in the temple treasury didn't wait until she had 20. She gave what she had. And Jesus said she gave more than all the wealthy donors combined. Listen to what Paul declares in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 11. You will be enriched in every way so that you can be generous on every occasion. Did you catch that? Enriched so that you can be generous. God's not blessing you to build bigger barns for your blessing. He's blessing you to become a blessing. But I know what's happening in your mind right now. The fear is rising, isn't it? That ancient terror whispering, what if I give and there's not enough left? What if I need it later? What if the economy crashes? What if the doctors say I need expensive treatment? Let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. When did you start trusting your bank account more than your God? You've survived the Great Depression. You've lived through recessions that buried entire industries. You've watched your portfolio crash and somehow still had food on your table. And you're going to tell me that the God who fed 5,000 with a boy's lunch can't handle your monthly expenses. The fear of running out is not wisdom, it's idolatry. It's making your security more important than your obedience. It's choosing the illusion of control over the reality of God's faithfulness. Here's the shocking truth that will revolutionize your understanding. Your generosity is warfare. Every time you give, you strike a blow against the spirit of greed. You shatter the poverty mindset. You declare to hell itself that your trust is not in money but in the God who provides it. When you write that check to the widow down the street, you're not just helping her with groceries. You're waging war against the forces that try to convince God's people they're forgotten. When you fund that missionary's trip, you're not just supporting ministry, you're launching missiles against spiritual darkness in foreign lands. Your giving is a weapon, chosen one. And the enemy has spent decades trying to disarm you by convincing you to hoard instead of release. But here's where it gets supernatural. The moment you shift from reservoir thinking to river thinking, something breaks open in the heavenly realm. The windows of heaven don't just crack, they burst wide open. Because God can finally trust you with abundance without it becoming your idol. I've seen it happen thousands of times. The couple who started tithing on their fixed income suddenly receives an unexpected inheritance. The grandmother who gives her last $100 to missions watches her investment account mysteriously multiply. The widower who funds a scholarship finds his medical bills disappearing through insurance errors that work in his favor. This isn't coincidence. This is covenant. When you operate as a river, God ensures the flow never stops. Right now, someone watching this is arguing with the Holy Spirit. You feel the pull to increase your giving, but your calculator is screaming objections. You know God is calling you to fund something specific, but your financial advisor would think you've lost your mind. Stop calculating and start trusting. Stop analyzing and start obeying. The same God who split the Red Sea can split your limitations. The same God who multiplied oil can multiply your resources. But He's waiting for you to move first. Your assignment in this billionaire shift isn't just to receive wealth, it's to redirect it. You're not being blessed to build a bigger retirement fund. You're being positioned to fund the final harvest before Christ returns. If you're ready to stop living as a reservoir and start flowing as a river, if you're ready to turn your giving into warfare against the kingdom of darkness, then I need you to declare it right now. Type in the comments, "I will flow." Don't just type it, say it out loud. Let your neighbors hear it. Let hell tremble at the sound of another reservoir breaking open to become a river. Because when rivers align with the billionaire shift, entire nations get watered with the glory of God. Beloved, chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to carry these eternal truths with you, like precious stones in your heart. Remember this: the billionaire shift unfolding before us isn't about chasing wealth. It's about recognizing that wealth is chasing you for kingdom purposes. You are not too old, not too late, and certainly not forgotten. Every gray hair on your head is a crown of wisdom. Every wrinkle tells a story of faithfulness through fire. Every year you've lived has been preparation for this moment, when heaven declares your season of obscurity is over. Remember that your generosity isn't just giving, it's warfare against every force that tries to keep God's people in bondage. When you flow like a river, instead of hoarding like a reservoir, you become a weapon in the hands of the Almighty, breaking poverty spirits and releasing abundance wherever you go. But most importantly, remember this: you are never walking this journey alone. Even when the road feels uncertain, even when the breakthrough seems delayed, even when doubt whispers lies in your ear, the Creator of the universe is orchestrating every detail of your life with precision. He's moving mountains you can't see, opening doors you haven't found yet, and preparing blessings that will take your breath away. And right here, in this community of believers, you have thousands of brothers and sisters who understand your struggles, who believe in your calling, and who are ready to stand with you in prayer. We're not just viewers on a screen. We're a family united by faith, connected by hope, and bound together by the love of Christ. Let me ask you this final question, and let it echo in your spirit long after this video ends. Now that you know heaven has marked you for this billionaire shift, now that you understand your pain was preparation and your waiting was positioning, what will you do with this revelation? Will you step boldly into your assignment, or will you let fear convince you to stay small when God has called you to be significant? Before I release you into your destiny, I want to pray over you. Right now, wherever you are, I want you to close your eyes and imagine me placing my hand on your shoulder as I speak these words over your life. Heavenly Father, I lift up every precious soul who has stayed with us through this entire message. Lord, you see their hearts, you know their struggles, you've counted every tear they've cried in secret. But Father, you also see their crown. You know their calling. You've already written their victory story. God, I pray that you would silence every voice of doubt that has whispered you're not enough. I pray that you would break every chain of financial fear that has held them captive. I pray that you would open their eyes to see the doors you're already opening, the opportunities you're already creating, the abundance you're already releasing. Place your mighty hand upon their shoulders right now, Lord. Let them feel your presence like a warm embrace. Where they feel forgotten, remind them they are chosen. Where they feel inadequate, show them they are equipped. Where they feel afraid, flood them with your perfect peace. Give them courage to step into their generosity assignment. Give them wisdom to recognize divine opportunities. Give them strength to flow like rivers instead of hoarding like reservoirs. And Father, release the billionaire shift over their lives, not for their glory, but for yours. Not for their comfort, but for your kingdom. Not for their retirement, but for revival. In Jesus' mighty name, let every door swing wide, every obstacle fall, and every promise manifest. Let this be the hour their waiting turns to celebration, their struggle turns to strength, and their obscurity turns to divine appointment. Amen and amen. Now, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share how this message has impacted your heart. What shifted in your spirit today? What are you believing God for in this season of the Billionaire Shift? Don't hold back. Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to step into their own calling. If you feel that holy urgency to be part of this generosity assignment, tell us about it. If you're ready to flow like a river, declare it. If you need prayer for specific areas of your life, ask us. This community will surround you with intercession like you've never experienced. And please, don't keep this message to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to know they're chosen too. Maybe it's that neighbor who's been struggling financially. Maybe it's your adult child who thinks their best days are behind them. Maybe it's someone in your church who's forgotten they carry the DNA of heaven itself. Thank you, from the depths of my heart, for giving me your time today. Thank you for opening your spirit to receive what God wanted to pour into you. Thank you for being part of this sacred community where faith grows, hope is restored, and destinies are awakened. If this is your first time here, welcome to the family. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because what we've shared today is just the beginning. God has more revelations, more strategies, more breakthrough words, specifically designed for this generation of chosen ones. Remember, beloved, you are not alone, you are not forgotten, and you are not finished. You are chosen, you are called, and you are about to step into the greatest chapter of your entire life. Until we meet again, walk in your authority, rest in His provision, and never forget the billionaire shift isn't coming to you. You're walking into it. God bless you mightily, chosen one. Your finest hour has arrived.